7:20. I was like, wait, what? It's 7:20?
Where we are.
Yeah. I was out on a bike ride.
That's because you live in the future.
I know. It's the
That's
same,
right.
though.
It's so insane to me. You're speaking to the past right now.
I know. How well the future is
Oh,
so bright.
Gotta die. Oh man.
Blue
Well,
shirt. Hashtag blue shirt.
wow, blue shirt. You can stuff a sock in it, Philadelphia. All right. Well, hey, YouTube and Twitter, welcome. We're glad you're with us tonight. Neil, I don't know if you're with us already or not. You might be sleeping in since we missed you last night. But if you are, my friend, good morning to you. We're glad to have you with us. All right. Let's do this. Everyone ready?
Yeah.
hold on just a second. Hold on. I'm ready.
There's
There's
always one in the group. All right. Here we go. Let's count it down, folks.
stress.
Get ready to hit that record button in 3, 2, 1, record.
There's been an awakening. Have you felt it?
Light it up.
Welcome to Unmistakably Star Wars, your source for a high-quality, informative, and entertaining look into the Star Wars galaxy. So strap yourself in, because here's where the fun begins.
So, it's about this time of year that I really hate my job.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. Why do you wait this long? I tried to get it done like the first week. But go ahead. Continue.
Well, for those of you that don't know, I'm a high school teacher, and I'm really not enjoying my seniors, especially because they're really not there.
Yes.
So, I'm teaching and to myself because no one's listening. And then I realized I should just actually utilize this time well instead of trying to teach actual content and history and important things.
Which
I
series
said,
are you
why don't
catching up on Netflix?
So I said, hey guys, I have a really, really important question. And of course, this was right before May the 4th. We were still in the throes of Marvel and Infinity War, and some still are. And I said, okay, it's a Friday night at the multiplex. I even had a student go, "What's a multiplex?" And I about slapped him. I said, "Are you really? You're a senior." So I said, it's a bunch of movie theaters in one building. And they were like, "Oh, okay." And so I said, "You're at the multiplex. The brand new Marvel is premiering the same night as a brand new Star Wars film. What do you go see?" And so I polled my classes, and the majority, and I think rightfully so, just because of what everyone's talking about. Most people, the majority lean toward Marvel, although there was a surprising number. Even my least favorite class picked Star Wars. So I guess there is that.
Wow.
So,
You're trying to become your most favorite class.
They're desperate at this point. They're really they're like, how can we get some points out of this? So, I got to thinking I need to use this more often, but I'm curious if you guys had to poll a class of students or multiple classes of students for some sort of Star Wars research, what kind of question would you want to ask them?
Ooh.
Favorite character, favorite scene, favorite movie. I mean, there's a poll going on StarWars.com right now about favorite movie. So what would you ask if you had classes of high school students? They're not doing any work. What would you ask them? Devin, I'm really curious.
Well, I'm happy to jump in here, Jeremy. Based on my day, about 30 feet from your classroom, I had the distinct honor and pleasure of tallying up 31 out of 96 U.S. history students who decided to plagiarize on their project that they've had to do since August. So I think my poll would be something like this. Using knowledge of Star Wars, select which death you would like to most experience. Would you like to be split open like a tauntaun?
Oh,
Yeah, right. Would you like to be forced
but
choked?
he was already dead.
Yeah, well, believe me.
Freeze to death.
Yeah,
and-
freeze to death. I'm happy to put them into carbonite, then defrost them, and then kill them.
Oh,
Forced
Wow.
choke, or I would even say if we had a pit of carcoon nearby, I would be willing to drop my students into 1,000-year misery for
Pick
what I
your
went through
death.
today. Yes.
Wow.
yes.
It's
So,
like a choose your
um,
own adventure.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. So I have no problem coming up with that poll. Bex, how about you? You would have worked with the younger kids, but for the high
With the younger
schoolers,
kids.
yeah.
Well, I'd probably kind of go off of the Marvel versus Star Wars and say, who's cooler? Who's the cooler guy that
Ooh.
you would want to hang out with for a day?
Oh yeah.
Lando
Oh
or Iron Man?
wow.
Who's
Ooh.
cooler?
That's a good question.
Man, that's a good one to ask right after this solo film comes out.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Mm.
Wow. What I appreciate most about that, it had no evil desires in it like mine did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you answer wrong, I mean,
Well, I guess there's that, but
there is only one right answer.
there is. You're right. It's Lando.
It's
Clear-
Lando.
Clearly.
Duh.
Capes. Eve, how about you?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I worked with tiny ones for a brief moment in time, and it was the most miserable time of my entire life. So, I mean, I don't even think I would give them the cooler option. I'd probably just be
Wow.
like, which color lightsaber do you like better, so I can judge how
Wow.
you're going to grow up.
Oh, I thought you were going to give him the Anakin at the Jedi Temple treatment there for a
I
second.
did think
oh
that. I
my
did
gosh.
think that, but I
Oh
was like,
my
I can't.
goodness.
That's it's too soon. I can't go. No,
Wow.
but yeah.
So
Is it wrong? Is it wrong to like Devin, once you said that
Yeah.
question, I really started enjoying thinking of the
Yeah.
ways
Yeah.
I could die.
I think the pit of cartoon is the way to go. Yeah.
Well, and Mustafar, like
Well,
just
yeah.
lighting on fire. I mean, that's fun.
Maybe I go into the class tomorrow and I say nothing except, I have the high ground. That's my opening line tomorrow. You can't win. I have the high ground.
Oh, it's
Oh.
beautiful.
Stand on your desk.
My gosh, don't put that past me. I've got tall ceilings. Well, my little tauntauns,
video.
welcome to this 132nd installment of Unmistakably Star Wars. I am your curator of content on this evening's journey. My name is Devin Cleffer. Joining me in the USW World Headquarters, located in the San Francisco Bay Area, the one and only Ewok-loving Fun Auntie Bex.
Hey guys.
Also from the West Coast, and just as irate about young adults and the future of tomorrow, the one and only Mr. Jeremy Scott.
Cutting the sublight engines. I used it.
You did, you sly son of a gun, you. Maybe we get that in the solo film. That'll be part of our solo preview
Wow.
episode.
Oh,
And the woman that I had respect for up until about 48 hours ago when her Philadelphia Phillies pummeled my San Francisco Giants,
I mean,
the one and only Salty Philly, Eve.
Yeah.
Welcome, Eve.
well, pleasure to be here. By the way, we won again, but you know,
All right, well, thank you for rubbing that in.
salty
Yeah,
Philly.
Salty Philly. I feel the wound just scathing now. Scathing. Well, listen, folks, we've got some fun stuff to talk about tonight. I don't know if you heard of this little solo movie that's coming out as Auntie Bex rolls her eyes in the studio yet again. But it sold some tickets this last weekend, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, speaking of fiery deaths and the high ground, we're going to talk about that Mustafar Castle that we got a little glimpse of in Rogue One, because we're going to get a multi-part series in the Marvel Vader line that's going to talk about Vader's Castle, which I think could be kind of cool. I'm actually looking forward to seeing some 411 on that. And then here we go. This is where people start to rage quit even listening to this podcast right now. And if you are online watching us right now on YouTube and or the Twitter, listen, just stay with us. Let me get through this before you throw your device across the room. An article came out, about a month ago, and it had two sides to this article, Bex. And when I saw it, I thought, certainly it's clickbait. And because I
Certainly.
wanted to click on clickbait, and I love my hot takes, I decided I'm going to click. And it turned out that the author actually had some good things to say. So tonight is part one of a two-part series. And tonight in our Closer Look segment, we're going to be talking about what do the new Star Wars films do better than the originals? Some people just drove off the road right now when I said that. What do the new Star Wars films do better than the originals, Bex? You're not even eye rolling. You're just shaking your head now. I can take it. That's all right. So we're going to talk about that. And then, of course, next week we'll come back and talk about part 2. What do the originals do better than the new films? I know people will be happy to weigh in on that one. So stick around, my little tauntauns. The news is next.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's so interesting.
Wait, there's something very weak coming through.
All right, let's jump into the news and let's talk about this Han Solo movie that Bex cannot wait to see.
So excited.
Listen, I got a text from Jeremy, and I don't even know what time it was, Jeremy, maybe 9:30 or so, that said, tickets are on sale. And so I got on the Fandango and grabbed up a bunch. Bex, you and your husband are cordially invited through that large allotment of tickets I happen to
I
get.
already got the text saying that my tickets have been bought.
Yeah, you got the text that said, tickets are bought. You're going. So here's the deal. Like there's actually some news with this, and that is Solo is projected to potentially break $170 million its opening weekend. And the pre-sales at the time of this podcast recording, the pre-sales for Solo more than doubled Black Panther. So, Jeremy, let me begin with you. Is this the best movie since Citizen Kane? Is this the definitive release of American cinema right here?
Wow, that's a hard question. Isn't it interesting though? There's been sort of this narrative that has sort of been going on for a while now that Solo is a film we don't need. I didn't ask for this. Right. This is the Star Wars I'm interested in. I'd rather have this. I mean, I would even say I was providing some of that dialogue, just saying, I don't know, give me Obi-Wan instead. But the more I have seen, the more I'm excited about this film. And of course, even we took part in Forced Discourse along with Carl to talk about Last Shot, the novel by Daniel Jose Older, which really got us amped for this movie. It's a phenomenal book. And, here we go. I mean, and a lot of people, it's fascinating to look at the YouTube landscape and see people kind of going, wow, 170 million projections, projected opening Memorial Day weekend. That is nothing to balk at, and it could do better than Rogue One. And man, it's surprising. I expected it to be successful, but they were doing like all these pollings, about percentages of what people thought of like his Han Solo favorite character. When my dad is in his 70s, took me to see the originals. And when we watched the preview, he's not a huge fan, but he's familiar. He was like, oh, I can't wait to see this one.
Wow.
And I'm like, Dad, more than Rogue One? And he's like, oh yeah. But Dad, more than The Last Jedi? Oh yeah.
Wow.
And I'm like,
wow.
Okay, all right, and so I later asked him, what was it? And he just said the feeling of fun and Western in sci-fi. It just, that combination just really, of course, Han Solo. And I think the average fan is just like, yeah, I'm on board. I'll go check this out. So I'm thrilled that it might do incredible numbers.
Well, I think it is fascinating because I think so many of us, and I'll throw myself in that boat as well. And that was like, I didn't know that this is the movie that I wanted to see, but as we get closer, it's definitely becoming that. Eve, let me come to you. You are in the midst of doing the Forced Discourse with both Jeremy and Carl. How has reading The Last Shot maybe made you even more excited than this film than you even anticipated?
Well, we finished it because we couldn't actually do it in parts. It was too good.
It was too good. I had to keep on keeping on.
Yeah. It was, oh gosh, it was an excellent Star Wars book, in my opinion, having not read that many Star Wars books, but it was fast paced and it was fun and it was moving and it had me from like page one, sentence one. And I said, I don't remember if I said it here on the pod or there on Forced Discourse, but if Solo is anything like this book, 170, I would go higher because it's just, again, my best friend, not a Star Wars fan at all, but she actually has noticed this movie and she's like, that looks like a good time. I might actually see that.
Wow.
And that just speaks volumes to me outside of, my own fandom bubble, which is always expanding. But to see people who just really have no clue. And, not that they're listening to this podcast, but I love the people that have no clue too. But to take interest in that, I think that says a lot. And I'm in the same boat. I complained about it too in the beginning, but I have since been converted. I'm a believer.
Wow. Okay. So I guess the Solo people are going door to door knocking and
yes. I certainly did.
We'll certainly come back to a closer look topic about you selecting a best friend that doesn't like Star Wars at a later date. But
I know.
Bex,
balance.
Balance. Right. Bex, Fandango did a poll.
Yes.
81% of the participants said Han Solo is their favorite Star Wars character.
Sure.
You've heard from Jeremy. You've heard from Eve. Are you budged? Has the needle moved at all now?
On which?
On you looking forward to seeing this film? Oh my gosh!
Bex, I have to stop. I'm getting on a plane right now.
Oh my gosh!
Look, I don't.
Wow! All right. Well,
Speak your truth.
Say it with conviction. I love
know. It's like Jell-O. There's room for it, but is it necessary? I don't know.
Man.
I could be.
There's room for.
Now we're.
Sorry, it's true. I am looking forward to seeing Lando.
Okay.
Okay, that's as much as I can give you.
Okay.
But I think that's important, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Donald Glover, and a lot of people are talking about This Is America.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, the video is.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there are many people that can articulate what that means and what's going on much better than I can. But it's definitely he, his SNL performance, his song, being Lando. He is sort of capturing the zeitgeist right now, and I would imagine he's, moving to the front of compelling artists right now. And I think there's a lot of people that are average film goers that are not necessarily Star Wars fans that are basically saying, oh, Donald Glover's in this, I'll check it out. And that could be, who knows, but we've seen star power at different times impact box office, and it could be a $15 million boost opening weekend, it could be a $20 million boost, we don't know, but it could definitely, that statement that Bex made, I think a lot of people are making it.
The Lando factor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. Whatever gets them in the door.
Right. I do have to say, I don't want this film to fail. I want it to
Clearly,
be
with your
successful.
attitude, I would have totally guessed that.
I do want it to be successful. And I will say I did purchase Last Shot and have started reading it. And that does get me.
Well.
I said that the last time I was on the podcast. That
Say
little
more.
snippet
Yeah.
that we read, I wanted
Yeah.
to find out.
Yeah.
So I'm finding out.
Okay.
And it makes me somewhat.
What? I'm leaning in.
I feel a disturbance in the force over here at World Headquarters.
It makes me feel somewhat less mediocre about seeing it.
Wow.
How about that?
Wow.
Man.
I love it.
Not
Goodness.
moved all the way too excited yet.
Remind me of
But I
Danielle
am-
Abenanti when I asked her to prom. I'm almost kind of interested if nobody else asks me.
Oh.
You can't do that to me.
Oh, I can't.
I'm going to see it, aren't I?
Because I
Bex,
bought your
did
ticket,
you-
Bex.
Bex, did you watch the it's about a minute long clip from the film, not trailer stuff, it was an actual clip. Did you see that one where with Chewie and Han and the Falcon?
I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, after the show, we'll
Okay.
watch it.
All
And
right.
I want to see I want to hear your thoughts on it. So
It's
Okay.
a Fun Anti-Bex reaction video.
yeah,
Let's
we
do
should,
it.
Okay, sweet.
Let's do it.
We'll publish that later as well. Hey, so here's the thing, though.
Sorry, Twitter.
Is this movie look? I just happened to see Black Panther this last weekend for the first time.
That was good.
Phenomenal. I love the mythology. I love everything that they did with that film from top to bottom. So here's my question, though. If this is doubling Black Panther's pre-sales, and Black Panther, as far as my understanding of the MCU, was widely sought after. Everyone was looking forward to it. If this is more than doubled pre-sales as Black Panther, is this about to become the most widely accepted of the 4 Disney Star Wars films? Are we looking at something here that people are, Eve, you alluded to this, that, hey, I'm just looking for, to quote Bret Michaels from Poison, ain't nothing but a good time. Is this something where people will be like, you know what, this was fun? And, of course, there's going to be critics, but will this be the movie? I don't want to say that, you know, it brings a kumbaya to fandom, but will this be the one where fans go, hey, that was actually kind of fun? Eve, what do you think about that?
I think, yes, I think that it could be. I don't like the kumbaya thing. I feel like it's always had that condescending, like, jab at it.
Sorry, we live in the land of hippies and granola out here on the West Coast. So.
No, it's not just you. I've seen it on the Twitter quite a few times, but I think that it'll be common ground. If people go in expecting a really fun time and it delivers, even if you're not a super fan, or even if you've had grievances with The Last Jedi, or if you loved it and lost touch with people, I feel like that's going to be a really good common ground for people to come back and be like tentatively, like, so you loved it too, right? Like, we can talk about this now. And I would love to see that happen, honestly.
Yeah, well, I think that'd be a great way to, I think, launch into some fun dialogues. I see this as a look. We've had the December releases. I'm still a fan of the December release because I get to go see a Star Wars film on my birthday. But I will say this: this feels like a summer blockbuster movie where we can go grab some popcorn, sit down, have some laughs, sit in an air-conditioned room, and then go to another theater without paying for another ticket again and watch it over again.
Yeah,
That sounds about right.
That sounds about right.
All right, that's fantastic. Well, let's transition a little bit. Going back to Rogue One, we got a little snippet of Darth Vader's castle there on Mustafar.
Oh man!
And so many questions came out of that. I remember the first preview we saw was Rogue One centric, that had this hooded figure going up to the Bacta tank, and who is that? And all the speculation surrounding that. And then we get these shots of the castle, both interior and exterior, and oh my goodness, mythology is born. And of course, the Vader's castle goes back to the early days of Ralph McQuarrie drawings and all that, so it was finally brought into canon. So, Eve, let me begin with you. Is this the best place to give us a little bit of backstory for Vader's castle? Is in a small arc within a Marvel series?
Yes.
Oh wow!
I'm so excited for this. That has been one of the biggest parts of Star Wars. Vader is like my number 1.2.
Wow.
And just seeing that castle in the few instances that it's popped up here and there has always been can we just stay there? Can we just go back and stay there for like an hour and tell me all about it?
Wow.
So as soon as that announcement popped up on Twitter, I couldn't retweet and share my excitement fast enough. I think that, but again, it's my perspective. It's my opinion. Is it the best place to give backstory for Vader? I don't know if I would necessarily say that particular place is it, but for me, it might just be.
Okay. Well, so what is it about seeing it in comic form that you think is really going to be able to flesh out some of the allure for you?
I mean, I'm a big fan of the way that they're doing Vader art and the arcs lately. And I think just if it was on film, I don't know if you would have enough of the visuals to satisfy that particular part of my brain that lights up whenever that pops on screen. And in a comic book, I think that they can not that they drag it out, but I think they can do more with it over a longer period of time. And then anything that, like, exposition wise, my brain can just fill in without wasting time on anything else if it were in a movie.
Right. Wasting time on fathiers and things like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Jeremy, you are on the record as saying that you couldn't wait to know more about Vader's castle and why it was built there, why on Mustafar of all places. Isn't that like the ultimate cruel joke? For someone that has the most serious case of intergalactic asthma imaginable. Here he is on a sulfur lava-based planet. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's interesting they're going to explore it in the comics. I don't know what to think about it. I totally agree with Eve that I have adored the newest Vader comic line.
Mm-hmm.
I literally, in the mail, about an hour before we went live, I got the delivery of the latest trade paperback of the Vader comic. So I'm going to crack that open, and I can't wait. And I've really enjoyed it. I wanted to see this in other mediums. I didn't necessarily want it in comics, but if we're getting it in comics, great. Bring it on. I'll read it. I'm excited. It's one of those mysteries, and we'll talk about mystery later, I think, in the show.
Right.
It's one of those mysteries that I'm really into. It is, why is this here? What is it on top of? Because the visual dictionary of Rogue One talks about that a little bit. Right. We know it's built of obsidian. We know, I think, Snoke has some of it in his ring, I believe. I would have to double check, but I think there's some connective tissue there. On Rebels Recon, Pablo Hidalgo, he confirmed that was exactly where Tarkin was taking Kanan Jarrus in the season 1 finale. And there's even, kind of like Jedi go there to die, that kind of idea.
Right.
So I am really fascinated with where this is going, what's going to be revealed, why here. I think there is this way of stoking Vader's anger to make him even more powerful in the dark side, to be where he was almost destroyed by his best friend. So I think there's some neat things that will be explored, and the comics it's been of all of the new Marvel comics, it has been my favorite run. Wow. And I love the Lando limited series. I love Kanan. This has been my favorite. So I'm excited. Would I like to see it in a film again? Sure. And who says that it won't show up again? But here we go. I'll take it.
I like that. And let's face it, if anyone can use connective tissue, it's Snoke after what happened to him in The Last Jedi. Bex, how long until Cinderella's castle is replaced by Vader's castle at Disney World?
3 to 5 years.
Okay.
I do have to say real quick, I don't know if any of you guys collect the Star Wars Lego sets, but Kylo Ren's TIE Fighter, when you stand it on end, it looks like Vader's castle.
What?
What?
Oh, yeah.
Bex breaking it with the hot takes now live on the Twitter and the YouTube.
I don't know if anyone else has noticed that.
Okay. Well, if you have noticed that, Twitterverse, let us know. Otherwise, we give you full credit for that, Bex. No problem.
I just think it's another interesting connective tissue between,
She picks up on the most minute little thing and yet doesn't want to see the Han Solo film. I'm fascinated, Bex. I'm fascinated. Listen, going back to the Rogue One trailer that included that cloaked figure, we later learned that it is his servant, Vane. And so, Bex, do we want to know more about him? And do you think that there's anything there? Do you want there to be anything there as far as his little servant? Or do you think that he's just somebody that applied for the job and they cleared his references and it turned out okay?
I'm interested in who he is. Okay. I'm interested in how he got that job.
Yeah.
Like,
right?
Whose coffee did he spit in to get set up as, Vader's right-hand person? Yes, I'm interested.
Do you think he's taking note of anything the Dark Lord of the Sith does, as far as you think that he may be force sensitive? Do you think that he knows some secrets about Darth Vader that nobody else does?
Well, sure. I'm sure he does.
Okay.
He gets to go through the garbage can. He gets to see, what gets thrown away.
I believe it's a trash compactor, but that's okay.
But he gets to know all of that stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is keeping tabs on him for the Emperor.
Ooh.
Super on the down low.
Well, on the DL. Yeah, the DL with Palpatine. Jeremy, what do you think about this? Is there anything to the servant? Is he the proverbial mystery, the enigma wrapped in a riddle?
It's going to be interesting. Why was he stationed there? Is it something the ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau, had cooking for Palpatine as a spy attendant? I would imagine this is where you would want to go with a story, is kind of look at this relationship. Maybe there's tension there. I think there's a lot there. and one of the interesting things is I believe, and I would love to hear from like the big Rebels fans out there, that the character in season 4, I think his name was Varys. Varys Hydan, I think was his name. But he was that character in the leading up to the finale of the final season of Rebels, and I think he was going to be this character that we see in Rogue One, but I think they decided to change it. I don't know if they're the same order or the same like organization, but there's some neat mystery with this character, you know, and I think this is where you would want to go in a story. I think there could be some tension there because, let's face it, the tension between Palpatine and Vader is some of the most delicious Star Wars storytelling. And, you know, you look at like Lords of the Sith. I mean, that book, just the tension between these two characters. Yeah. If this can play up on that and play it, you know, and make it something engaging, I'm all for it. Let's bring it on. Let's focus on this character. Let's find out what his purpose is, why he is really there. So
I love it. I would love to see some type of thread within this. I think it's going to be 3 or 4 shot arc with the Vader castle, and I would love to see that character somehow intertwined with either other characters of the time period, something that we already have a little bit of familiarity with. I think that what I've seen so far with tip of the cap to the MCU, but they were thinking the long game back in 2008 when they began this whole thing. And I would love to see more of that in the Star Wars, whether it's in comic form, novel, or cinema. Before we go forward, let me ask this: Speaking of it's the pod game sweep in the galaxy. Eve, tell us all about it and what you got for us this week.
Well, yes, I'm just going to throw a question out to you, fine, lovely humans. If scenario, and then just, you know, minute or two, give it your best shot, whatever you come up with on the fly, because none of you know what I'm going to ask you.
None of us.
No, but I thought with the closer look and what does the sequel trilogy do better than the original trilogy, new characters came to mind. So with that, and I'm going to start with Jeremy, because I feel like I've done this once with you on the show, right?
I can't remember.
So if you were to put yourself into the Star Wars sequel trilogy, which new character do you think would be your love interest?
Wow. Man.
Right? Because there's not a lot of that going around right now.
Yeah, so
Jeremy, can you
my
see what's
love
around
interest.
Because I can see you, but I can't see what's around you.
Well, first I want to say that there's some sexy people in this new trilogy.
I agree.
So are you saying just the sequels, not Rogue One?
Just the sequel. We can throw in Rogue One.
Really? Oh, now
the gauntlet has been thrown down. All right.
The gauntlet.
Oh, I mean, it is a no-brainer for me. If Rogue One's included, it is Jyn Erso, hands down, non-negotiable.
Wow.
I'm like,
okay.
Yeah, I better make sure my wife isn't listening.
Lock that door. Lock the door and hope she doesn't have a blaster. Yeah.
Jyn Erso. I love so much about her character. She's beautiful, but she is so engaging in that movie. And, you know, the poll on StarWars.com came out recently. What's your favorite movie? And of course, I clicked, you know, Empire Strikes Back. But I was really surprised to see the percentages for Rogue One. And I think that movie's growing on a lot of people. But one, I really love that character. I love her resolve to see it through. And we need that in our world, and I find that incredibly attractive. So yeah, it's Jyn Erso.
Wow, well, there you go. Now, so I'm gonna ask because are you going to me next? Or are you going to Bex next?
Yeah, we can go to you next.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like you're a little excited there, Devin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, because I want clarification too. So we're just including film, we're not including animation. Then.
Just film.
All right. So who
Real
would
people
be my love interest from Sequels. Okay. I mean, I have to say that there's part of me that I would default to Ray, but I just feel like a dirty old man when I say that. So I won't say that. I won't say that. Gosh.
My close second was Holdo.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the Admiral. I think I'm going to go with there's something about lavender hair. I'm going to go with Admiral or Vice Admiral Holdo. Vice Admiral.
All right.
Admiral Holdo. Yeah.
I thought Phasma would have had a little pull, but she's not.
Listen, for the same reason I didn't pick Jyn Erso, because both those women could kick my ass, and I want nothing of that. I want nothing of that.
No offense, but I think Holdo could take you too.
Well, and I might let her. Who knows? But anyway.
Oh, Lord.
You're up, Anti-Bex.
Yep.
No.
Quite the selection for you.
Right?
Leather pants,
hey.
flowing hair.
There's nothing wrong with tight leather pants and flowing hair. I just watched Dirty Dancing the other night, so you know.
Nobody puts Bex in the corner.
Oh, why does this question make me giggle? I'm gonna have to go with Poe Dameron.
Oh.
Yeah, he was my third choice.
Way to rock it, Jeremy.
There's just something about the, go against all orders and do what you want.
He's a bad guy.
He's a good bad guy.
He's the Fonz of the Star Wars galaxy.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, thank you.
No, that's...
Thank you.
All right.
All of our younger listeners are like, who?
Henry Winkler Part 2.
Yeah, wow.
All right.
Eve.
Yeah, Eve, you have to answer this.
Yeah.
Well, Bex, Poe. I have to go with Poe.
Oh, all right.
He's just, them piloting skills alone are sexy. And then everything else.
It's true.
Everything else, wow.
Yeah.
Here's what's funny is, ladies, you didn't have any problem coming up with that. And I had to consider options. Whose lasagna may taste best? I don't know. Yeah, I appreciate your devotion to Poe Hot Dameron.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's amazing. All right, so Jyn Erso, Holdo, Poe Dameron.
That's it.
Yeah, that's a collection right there, people. That is a collection right there. Oh my gosh. All right, Tauntauns, if you're still with us, stick around a little longer. We'll be right back with our closer look.
I'm going in closer to one of the big ones.
Closer? The closer I have the view.
A certain point of view.
Same thing I always do, talk my way out of it.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
I never ask that question till after I've done it.
You're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
Never truer was that statement than the conversation we're about to launch into right now. Our friends at CBR.com released an article in the middle of April of this year, and the title, of course, was 20 Things the New Star Wars Films Do Better and Way Worse Than the Originals. So tonight in the closer look, we're going to take part 1, and we're going to talk about 10 things that this article suggests that the sequels do better than the originals. And then next week we'll come back and flip that coin over and see the 10 things that the originals do better than the sequels. With that in mind, look, I know this could be potentially a hot button, but we're here just to have fun. If you feel that you need to melt down our email address or add us on Twitter, by all means, feel free to. But we just want to have a little bit of fun with this, or at least we're going to try to. So let's dive into this. And in no particular order, let's take thing number 1, that the sequels do better than the originals, and for that matter, originals / prequels. So here is the number 1 thing that they do better. Cinematography. Let me read a little bit of the article. Of the 3 new Star Wars films we've gotten so far, The Last Jedi has, without a doubt, see, already I'm starting to get a little worried there, without a doubt, been the most controversial and the most criticized. Whether that criticism is deserved or an overreaction, there is no debate that this is a beautiful film, referring to The Last Jedi. I think we can say the same thing for Rogue One. I think of Scarif. I think of Edu. I think of so many of the places that we saw. I love the snowy forest scene at the end of Force Awakens. So, Eve, let me come your way first. Cinematography-wise, sequels better than originals? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, and tell me why. What's your rationale for that personally?
I think I'm just in the fact that the effects overall, the things that can be done, through ILM and just computer technology and science blow me away and continue to blow me away. So having that, like taking Star Wars and modernizing it to, still use practical effects, but still rely heavily on the computer tinkering, that wins for me.
All right. Yeah. Bex, let me swing it your way. Your thoughts. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen this look since we talked about Solo at the opening of the show.
I know. Well, I have a problem with this one.
I figured you might.
I know.
Yeah.
Because I'm difficult.
Yes, you are.
But we're friends anyway.
We are.
And that's what matters.
The beauty of friendship.
I have a problem with saying the cinematography is better. Of course it's better. We have better technology. So I feel like it's an unfair comparison to say that movies made 40 years later are better.
Yeah, but I think cinematography just goes beyond just like effects and stuff. We're talking about like the shots and angles and things of that nature.
But I think it also, we've got better stuff.
Yeah, but let's go back. So I'm going to push back. Yeah, we've got better stuff, right? But I'm going to push back. And one of the films that we did for Vintage Recap leading up to The Last Jedi was Three Outlaw Samurai.
Okay.
And the cinematography and the sequencing, the shots in that were just majestic as far as how that film was shot. And that's old black and white film. So that predates the original Star Wars by quite a bit. So just in terms of the cinematography, what we see on screen, how things are laid out, the framing of stuff.
Okay.
What do you think? Still sticking to your guns?
Well, yes.
Okay.
I'm going to stick to my guns with this.
All right.
Although, I mean, the new ones are laid out beautifully.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I can't.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Yeah.
All right.
Way to come strong and hold your position. Jeremy, let me swing it over to you. You actually teach classes on film. No, Bex, I'll come back to you when I'm ready to come back to you. You've taught classes on film appreciation. When you think cinematography and you're looking at the original, you're looking at the sequels, what are some shots that stick out as perhaps some of the more epic scenes cinematically for you?
Yeah, so for me, the answer is yes. It's like the new ones are better. But that doesn't mean, by saying that there's no knock on some of the amazing shots in the original trilogy and in the prequels. I think one of my favorites is the sunset in Revenge of the Sith. It's beautiful. And the way that those scenes were, the lighting in those scenes, especially on Padme and Anakin as they looked back and forth, that's beautiful. Beautiful. So I don't want to take anything away, but I do believe these new films are amazing. I think the work is amazing. And to quote Krennic, it's beautiful. And that shot is amazing. Where in Rogue One, where the Death Star fires on Jedha. And it's terrifying, and there is this wicked beauty to it. And there's so many shots in Rogue One alone that you just have to marvel at. And a lot of them have to do with the Death Star. But I would say sunset shot in The Force Awakens with TIE fighters, wonderful. The Last Jedi, you can just go over and over. I mean, there's so many in that film. Luke staring down. It's even in the article, Luke staring down at the walkers before they open fire on him. There are shots, obviously, on Skellig Michael. There are shots all throughout the film. The way things are the lighting, of course, the throne room scene. My goodness, so beautifully done. The coloring and the shadows is just masterful work. And I think the best is yet to come with Solo. I think we're going to see some things in it based on the talent that's working on the film that's going to blow people away. So I'm going to say new ones, and those are some reasons why.
Eve, let me come back to you really quickly on this. What is your favorite cinematograph shot? That's not a word at all, so I just went totally President Bush on everybody. But what's your favorite shot from the sequels?
I think I have probably about 50. But if I have to limit it, you need to give me at least 2.
Sure, I'll give you 2. Whittle it down.
All right. Yeah. So one of them is in Rogue One, and it's the rising of the Death Star and the atmospheric distortion that you see. Just, oh gosh. I mean, I'm such a science space nerd that when I saw that, I think I actually teared up, I'm going to be honest.
Wow.
Because it just looked like if I had looked out of my window at that exact moment, that's what I would have seen.
Wow.
Like, just perfectly. So that moment. And then probably Luke's death in The Last Jedi. I think with the whole meaning of the scene and then just the lighting and the movement and his emotions, it was perfect.
Yeah, I'd be hard-pressed to push back against any of those that have been mentioned. Anytime I think you're involving sunrises and sunsets, you're going to get something there. I think for me, one of the shots that is just emblazoned in my mind, though, and that is, we got it early in the previews for The Last Jedi, and that is the scene on Crate. We have this kind of shot high, but from behind of what we would later know is the Resistance going over the salt of Crate and just these red lines kicking up. And then when we see it in the movie, when they're actually in battle, and we see them take all kinds of maneuvers and stuff to avoid fire from the guerrilla walkers, as I guess they've been termed as. Something about that red on white is just so striking and beautiful to me that it's hard to get that out of my mind. So, all right. So, are we Bex? Are you holding out, or are we saying 4 out of 4 or 3 out of 4 with cinematography?
All right, I'll come to the
all
dark side.
right. Wow, come to the right side. All right, so 4 out of 4 for cinematography. Let's talk about this next one, and I think here is a great example of when things start to maybe go a little bit awry. But the second thing they have listed as the sequels get better than the originals, which includes the prequels, and that is better mystery. Better mystery. And of course, a lot of this surrounds Rey's parentage. It surrounds Snoke's backstory. This is actually written after The Last Jedi had come and gone in theaters, so the author still holds to that. So, Eve, let me begin with you.
Yes. I was hoping you did.
Oh.
Sequels,
that was
better mystery than originals.
No.
Okay.
Can I say why?
I love that idea. Let's go with that.
I didn't know if this is a yes or no lightning moment. All right. So I disagreed only because the originals did an amazing job setting up the sequel trilogy for basically breadcrumbs. So if all of us are going into the sequel trilogy thinking, who's Rey's parents? Who is Snoke? It's only because we have had that same exact experience with the original trilogy and the prequels. So none of us would have been like, well, who is Rey's father or who's Rey's mother if Vader hadn't been the big reveal in episode 5. So I think one cannot be more than the other. They can't coexist without the other one. It's just mutually exclusive, in my opinion.
All right. Okay, I'll buy that. Bex?
I would agree with that.
Wow.
Wholeheartedly, actually.
All right. You want to add 2?
No, because those were the points I was going to
Okay.
Not as eloquently put, but I was going to try and do it too.
Okay. All right. Jeremy, jump in here. Your thoughts on this. Prequels, originals, mystery.
Yeah, so the author is basically saying the better in these sequels is the mystery. I totally disagree with that. And just like look at the original trilogy alone, and I think I wonder how old is it Matthew Stevens is. I would be really curious to know his age, but I remember I wrote down my questions when I was a kid watching Star Wars. These were the mysteries to me. Who the hell was Boba Fett? What were the Clone Wars and what were they like? What was that skeleton in the background on Tatooine? What is a Sith? Who is the other? No, there is another. right? Who is that?
Mm-hmm.
Is Vader really his father, or is it a trick, right? Who is the Emperor? What exactly are the stormtroopers? Who was Jabba the Hutt, and what was he like? What did happen at Ord Mantell that Han Solo mentions, and what was the Kessel Run? I just sat down. Those were all mysteries that I cared deeply about as a kid that I wanted to know the answers to. I'm sorry, the original trilogy of films had the better mystery. It just does. I think, looking at, yes, Rey is mysterious. What happened with the Jedi school with Luke, that is like, who were these people? How did he get? That's mysterious. But I don't find the sheer number of mysteries that I found with the original trilogy of Star Wars films. So,
do you think? Cause I'm going to stay with that for a second. Do you think had a different reveal been for Rey's parentage, if a different reveal had been for Snoke's backstory, do you think that would sway your position on this in the least, or do you think that they would still remain inconsequential compared to the mysteries of the originals?
It might have swayed it, but just a little. Like I wasn't devastated by not like getting a Rey as a Kenobi, like I wasn't like, bumming out a little bit, but like it wasn't like a huge deal to me. I was like, oh yeah, it makes sense, Snoke, a little bummed out we don't get to know more, but they're not making it right now. It doesn't seem that important to the story, which is fine. A lot of the mysteries I read off aren't that important, but I just found the original trilogy, and obviously I was a child, but I still find those interesting questions, and they're so interesting. For example, that the Kessel Run most likely is going to be something in Solo. It was a throwaway line, not a throwaway line, but it was a line in the movie that was not a central thing to be explored. And yet it has spawned such interest that a film is going to have, most likely an element of this new film coming out is going to deal with that. So there's some interesting things getting the original trilogy still casts a shadow over so much. And there's so many mysteries in there that I think we're still as fans wanting to explore. And so I just keep going back to the original trilogy. The prequels to an extent, but it's the original trilogy for me is the most mysterious.
All right. I'm in agreement with everyone. I think that it's, Jeremy, those same things that you mentioned were the ones that captivated me, and as 7, 8-year-old was just like totally out of his mind at the end of Empire Strikes Back. And I think that I don't think that there has been anywhere close to as big of a mystery as the Empire Strikes Back / Return of the Jedi reveal when it comes to Darth Vader being father and everything of that plays under that umbrella with a certain point of view and everything else. So I think that I love this guy's take and the way that he framed his argument, but I'm still not ready to go there as far as mystery. I think the originals have it. All right, let's move on to the next one here. And boy, this is just getting more and more interesting as we go down this rabbit hole, or cave at Dagobah, whichever you prefer. All right, so the next one he says, and this is how the author sets it up, is he says that the lightsaber battles in the sequels are better than the lightsaber battles in the originals. And he goes on to say this, that the choreography for episodes 1, 2, and 3 was more like, his words, dancing than fighting, with a lot of fancy spinning and flipping. And then, we could look at the lightsaber battle, and we'll loosely call it a battle, for Star Wars A New Hope. And, obviously in Empire, we've got some really great choreographed battles between Luke Skywalker and Vader, and we see similar in Return of the Jedi. So, Bex, let me come to you this time. Originals or sequels when it comes to lightsaber battles?
I'm going to go with originals.
Yeah? Why?
Yeah, because, well, it's hard for me to separate the fact that my favorite lightsaber battle is at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
And because that is my favorite, it's hard for me to look at it and be like, it's not the best one out there.
All right.
So it's more of a heartfelt.
Okay.
I love that one so much. And I really like the one, good grief, my brain. I really like the one in episode 1 with Darth Maul. We watched it last night with Silas, and it was just fantastic. It was so good. So
Not too much fancy flipping and dancing for you?
Not too much, just the right amount. Yeah. I mean, Ewan McGregor dancing and flipping around is not a bad thing to watch.
It's remnants of the Snow King in the Nutcracker. There's no doubt about it.
So I'm going to go with the originals.
Yeah. Okay, originals. Eve, your thoughts?
I'm with Bex in that my favorite lightsaber battle is definitely between Vader and Luke in Empire. And I think Neil actually just left a comment saying that the original lightsaber battles are more emotional, and I completely agree with that. But I think from a wow factor, that the current day lightsaber, I mean, the throne room battle was just, that was on another level. And yes, it's choreography and constant repetition, but it was just also really badass. Like dropping the lightsaber, or throwing the lightsaber to somebody, and then Kylo gets a headshot in. It was different. It was exciting. It was thrilling. And it wasn't something that we had seen before in the original trilogy. Okay. So yes, while my nostalgia definitely wants me to pick the original, I think I have to go with the new ones.
Wow. Okay. Favorite lightsaber battle overall?
Luke and Vader, Empire.
Okay. Wow. All right. Jeremy, jump in.
Boy, this is a hard one, isn't it? I was just thinking about it. The Last Jedi's battle is a huge favorite of mine. And a lot of that has to do with Rey is wonderful, but Kylo in that sequence, I don't know what it was. He is a captivating character for me. And so I really enjoyed that. I felt the dramatic tension in that scene in The Last Jedi was wonderful. Force Awakens was good. I enjoyed it. It's hard to go against. We really have, I guess you can talk about Vader's scene at the end of Rogue One, but I don't think that fits. So you're really dealing with 2 films against 6 films. They had 6 shots at lightsaber battles, and in some cases, like Revenge of the Sith, they had 3. Really, you had the Dooku, and then Anakin, Obi-Wan, and then you had Yoda and Sidious, and then you had Obi-Wan Anakin or Obi-Wan Vader. So it's so hard to say it's these new ones right now. Now, can that change? Sure, but for me, it's the prequels and the original trilogy. And my personal favorite is Empire Strikes Back. I just think the story, the dramatic tension, the big reveal as part of that. It was also, there was so many little character insights in how they fought and what was going on with them emotionally. It was interesting to watch, for example, in Empire, how Vader fought Luke with one hand, but as the battle progressed, he went to using lightsaber with 2 hands because he needed to finish it, and just like what that says, how he was trying to talk to him and play with him and get him to a place to where he would join him. And so again, the prequels and the original trilogy have better lightsaber fights, but that is not to take away from what The Last Jedi was doing. It was really special. So
when I read this, I can't, even today, if I go back and watch The Force Awakens, there is just something that makes my spine tingle when that lightsaber hilt goes flying into Rey's hands.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because it's the first time in the cinema version, at least, of Star Wars that we see a female not only handle herself, but handle herself well in that. So there's part of me that has just this emotional tie to that, to quote Whitney Houston, one moment in time. And I just think wow. I'm not going to go say that was the best Star Wars lightsaber battle, but there was something about that it is for me. It just pushes the button every single time for me. That being said, I can't disagree with the epicness of The Last Jedi. That being said,
where are you landing on this, Devin?
I've got to go with the originals. I don't want to say that there was more at stake, but I think I could make an argument that there was more at stake. at least it felt like that.
Yeah.
To an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
I think that battle on Bespin with Vader and Luke was a mix of so many things. I mean, you've got the score, you've got the actual duel taking place, you've got the stakes of these two men, and up until that point in time, Luke literally thinks that this is the dude who killed his father, and then the big reveal. And while we have epic battles, there's no other, like, that doesn't have an intersection of these big reveals in it.
Right.
And so I think that in and of itself is just it's the perfect crescendo when it comes to lightsaber battles. So I'm going original. So I think are we 2-2 on this one? Are we split on this one?
No, I think we're all original, right?
Original?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. See, that's my public school math skills paying off. All right. So all for the original. All right. Well, let's move on to the next one here. The next one he talks about, and look, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far at all. But so the next thing says, better in the sequels and the originals, that is the acting. And he even goes so far as to say, hey, look, let's have a moment of transparency and honesty, Star Wars fans, and let's look at some of the acting that Mark Hamill himself did in the original, and it's nowhere near what we get as far as his performance in The Force Awakens. No, in performance in The Last Jedi. And look, I without question, his performance in The Last Jedi was amazing. And I think part of his acting was so amazing because it wasn't the Luke Skywalker that we got in the originals. That being said, when you spend most of a 2+ hour movie acting with a puppet and you pull that off convincingly, that's pretty friggin' epic in my opinion. Jeremy, I'm going to begin with you this time. What makes it better when it comes to acting, the originals or the sequels?
The sequels, hands down. Yeah. Listen, I said on a previous episode, I think Mark Hamill's performance in Empire Strikes Back, he should have been nominated for Academy Award. I mean, that's the kind of Star Wars fan I am. Like, he needed an Academy Award nomination. But you're right. I mean, this performance with a puppet is so believable, and it still holds up. And even when he did it in The Last Jedi as an older man, it was just phenomenal. But what Daisy Ridley is doing with the character of Rey, specifically what she did in The Force Awakens, was captivating. And it was just a beautiful performance with a mixture of innocence and hope, but also determination and brokenness. It was just fascinating to watch. What Adam Driver has done is, in my opinion, head and shoulders above everyone else in Star Wars. From episode 1 all the way to now, he has given consistently in both films, but especially Last Jedi, his performance is mesmerizing. And he's one of my favorite characters in Star Wars, is the Ben Solo Kylo Ren character. And I think it's just phenomenal. I think Mark Hamill was phenomenal in Last Jedi. I would have to give it to the sequel trilogy as the best performances actors. So,
all right, Eve, thoughts on this?
I completely agree.
Wow.
As much as my Mark Hamill love and heart would love to say, episodes 4 and 6 were, knockouts. They were good. They were very good for his acting, but 5 was just on another level, and so was The Last Jedi. And that was one of the first things that I took home with me out of The Last Jedi was just, wow, like Mark Hamill brought everything. It was all on the table from start to finish. And I agree that Adam Driver is almost at an incomparable level with everybody else in these films. And speaking from someone who loves the character, he's not my favorite. I do love him, but just recognizing that I don't know who I could even liken that to in the original trilogy as far as his performance. So yes, without a doubt, the sequels.
Bex.
I'm going to agree and go with the sequels. And part of it for me is seeing the depth of the characters from the originals and how, as actors, they have all progressed. And, watching how Carrie Fisher played Leia and the differences between the original Leia and now the sequel's Leia. And the acting is phenomenal.
You bring up a great point, Bex. Let me ask this, and I'll throw it out to the rest of the group too, but let's take sequel Han, Luke, Leia versus original Han, Luke, Leia. Is there even any comparison to their acting?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, Han Solo and Ben Solo on the bridge in Force Awakens. I mean, that performance right there was better than. I mean, I love the original trilogy. I feel sick into my stomach, but like, I like
traitor.
No, it's amazing, and we haven't even talked about Rogue One. I every time I watch Jyn Erso watch her father communicate to him in hologram, I tear up. And she's just watching him talk. What a performance that Felicity Jones gives. It's incredible. And so, yeah, it's these new films that are being put out. The acting is so top notch. So, yeah.
Well, I think we're going to see even more evidence of that in about 3 weeks as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there. I'm with you guys. I think that the sequel gets it on these. I think that part of it has to do with they're also bringing in more accomplished actors to play these roles. I mean, we got Forrest Whitaker, for crying out loud, in a Star Wars film. You know, we've got Laura Dern. We've got all these folks that are seasoned actors well before they hit the screen for Star Wars. So I think that in and of itself is helping to sway that argument. All right, on to the next bit. Here we go. Better ship battles. Better ship battles in the sequels than the originals. Jeremy, I'm going to come to you first because of your fascination for ship battles. Of course, your dad was a air combat pilot, and so your thoughts on this?
Compared to the sequels, the originals are best, but not Rogue One. So Rogue One is keeping it in the conversation. Rogue One is so freaking awesome. It's just I love it. It's probably my favorite, but the total body of work in these original films, and you can just literally, I know the author of the article, Matthew Stevens talks about how, they're boring in the other films, in the original films. And I just, goodness, I don't see that in A New Hope and Return of the Jedi. I find them captivating and there's a great deal of dramatic tension and storytelling wrapped up into them. And so, Rogue One, it keeps the new films in the game, but eventually I have to go with the original ones.
Max,
I'm gonna have to give it to the originals.
Wow.
I mean, there's nothing like the run on the Death Star. You can't compare with that.
Okay, but what about like ship-to-ship combat, dogfighting, things like that?
It's a draw for me.
A draw?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow. Wait, we're playing soccer all of a sudden? Eve, how about you?
I have to give it to the original trilogy overall. But the opening to The Last Jedi was probably the most intense reaction I've ever had to a space battle in a Star Wars movie.
Good call. Yeah.
And somebody had told me that I think a day or two before the movie had premiered, somebody from Nerdist did a quick little podcast, and he said it is without a doubt the best Star Wars opening you will ever see. Wow. And I went into the theater with that in the back of my mind, and I tried so hard to just rip it out. But I sat down, and it was just from the get-go, Poe going against Leia, and then the emotional torment between Paige and Rose, and it was just every part hit at every. I can't even speak. It was just wonderful and horrifying at the same time.
So you're going with sequels?
No, I can't. I feel like if I have to wait until episode 9 to give that full answer.
If you're still on the podcast at that point, we'll ask you
That's
again.
cold. No, when I first opened, I said I have to go with the original trilogy.
All right, so you're going with originals, but
yes, but my favorite space battle is from The Last Jedi. But overall,
all right,
yeah.
I love my children, but.
Devin, what about you? Did you chime in on this one?
Listen,
you did not.
I haven't yet. I
You sound torn.
Well, I am torn. I feel like I'm being torn apart. But I think I know what I have to do. Listen, when we see Force Awakens, when we see the X-Wings over the water, and we've got John Williams' Resistance March theme, and when we have the opening to The Last Jedi, I mean, forget physics and bombs dropping in space. Let's just talk about the epicness of that scene.
Fire in space.
And then I'll just echo what Jeremy said with Rogue One. I'm gonna break from the pack here. I'm gonna go sequels on this. I'm gonna have to go with the sequels on this. Think about when Rey is flying the Falcon on Jakku for the first time.
Yeah, that's a great sequence.
How exciting that was. And you get that theme going, the John Williams score. It's just me. It's just me. You can at me if you want to, but I'm going with the sequel. So this is our first split.
Yeah.
No, I'm switching.
So, wait. All right. Oh, wait. Hold on. All right. So 2 originals, 2 sequels. Is that
right?
Going? Okay.
So two correct and 2 incorrect.
Everybody's allowed to be wrong.
Yeah, that you got me. You reminded me of the Rey and that. Yeah, gosh, that was fantastic.
Yeah, but what about now hold on. What about the asteroid chase in Empire Strikes Back? I'll raise you.
Man.
Go to there.
Sure. I think the asteroid chase was phenomenal. Here's my only thing about the asteroid chase. I mean, obviously, once again, John Williams brings that to life on another level. I have a really horrible association with the asteroid chase scene because it always reminds me of a Burger King ad from 1980, and I can't get past it. Curse you, Burger King, home of the Whopper.
Wow.
I know, but it's
wow.
true. I know. Yeah, no, there's no doubt that is a great one. But still, I'll take my sequels. I'll take my sequels. But
okay.
You know what's interesting? No, we haven't brought up, and I don't think this is intentional that we're passive aggressively bagging on the prequels. But I don't really recall like any notable space combat that I truly felt like, oh my goodness, this is great. Because in Phantom Menace, it personally lost me when Anakin got into the Naboo cruiser and like just started kicking some arse.
Yeah.
I was removed. I was removed. But listen, I know that we have folks that love the prequel, so I want to hear from you, especially when it comes to ship-to-ship combat in the prequels. Is there something that stands out that you believe is more superior to that of the originals and Bex? I want to know. All right, cruising on. Here we go. The next one he talks about. Okay, right? This is okay. He makes a distinction here, but he says that the sequels, the bad guy in the sequels is better. Here's how he puts it. These are his words. The mere suggestion that Kylo Ren or any villain in cinematic history could be better than Darth Vader is absolutely could cause you to rage quit reading the article. But hear him out, he says. Kylo Ren and Darth Vader are 2 distinct types of villains, and Kylo is arguably the more interesting type. Why, you might ask? He goes on to say, because he's not entirely sure he's on the right side. True, Darth Vader turned against the Empire in the 11th hour, but there was no indication of internal struggle before then. Kylo Ren, on the other hand, has been in a proverbial battle for his soul from the very beginning, and you're never quite sure what he's going to do. He's much more susceptible to his emotions as well, which means he may not be as good at his job as Vader, but he's a lot more interesting to watch, especially in leather pants. I'm adding that last part. That's my little addendum. Fun Anti-Bex, your thoughts on this? Do the bad guys in the sequels, and it's not just Kylo versus Vader, but collectively speaking, baddies, better in the sequels or in the originals?
Oh, this hurts me to say.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to say the sequels.
Oh, tell me why.
I think it's because we get to see Kylo Ren's growing pains. We didn't get to see Darth Vader's growing pains. Guaranteed he had them and he struggled with, becoming.
Well, we have 3 movies of his growing pains.
Well, yes and no. That we have his growing pains becoming Vader, but not once he is Vader.
Okay.
What happens then? Because guaranteed he didn't wake up Vader and be like, and now I am purely evil. He's still gonna have some growing pains and some things to get through.
Okay.
The fact that he believes he killed Padme and all that is gonna pay a little bit of an emotional toll on him. I would have liked to see that. We didn't get to see that.
So you're going sequels.
I'm going sequels because we're getting that struggle with Kylo. We're getting to see him waver back and forth and try and figure out is what he's doing right.
If we move beyond Vader and Kylo, would you agree? If we bring in kind of that second tier of baddies, we start talking about Boba Fett, Phasma, we start talking about Hux, we start talking about other Jabba in the originals.
Well, if we put Boba Fett up against Phasma, I'd take Boba Fett. So if we're
actually going to fight in the studio tonight.
Hey, that's fine. Bring it. I think it would have to be a character by character distinction for me.
Okay.
Because the Emperor is way better than Snoke.
Right, but he in his article he's labeling them as bad guy bosses. So we're taking them off the table.
No, but just talking about bad guys in general. Would I take the First Order or the Empire?
We want equal representation, so bad girls too. So
bad girls too.
Yes.
So would I take the Empire or the First Order? I'd have to go with the Empire. But one single character, Vader versus Kylo, I'd have to take Kylo.
All right. Way to deconstruct that.
Hey.
Jeremy, your thoughts. We know you're a Kylo Ren fan. You are on the record. You have sketches for a Kylo Ren tattoo. That's going way back to a series we did about 2 years ago about Star Wars tattoos, and Jeremy never got his tattoo that he owes our listeners. But anyway,
we can fix that.
We can fix that. We may do a live stream of that as well.
Gosh.
Sequels, originals, bad guys.
So real quick, just a single bad guy like Kylo Ren versus Vader. It's Kylo Ren. Like it's sequel. Overall, collectively, it's the originals.
Tell me why.
Well, I just think the trinity of Vader, Tarkin, and the Emperor, like they win out. Although we have Tarkin in Rogue One, so I don't know what to do with all that.
Yes,
it's a little challenging.
You're lighting my path for me.
But it's though collectively it's the original trilogy. But if I'm the way Matthew Stevens writes, he's the better bad guy. Is it Vader or Kylo? It's Kylo for me. So,
all right. So you're going to definitively say sequels.
Yep.
All right, Eve.
I think for me across the board, it's going to be the original trilogy. Vader is Vader again. Perspective though. Vader just means so dang much to me, and I remember that fear seeing him as a child and not understanding what or who he was or how he became that way. And that still is with me when I see him. Whereas I don't get that from Kylo. Kylo doesn't frighten me. He doesn't scare me. It's not, I know he's conflicted and I'm interested in that, but not from a big baddie point of view, if that makes any sense at all. And I think again, with like Palpatine and Emperor, it's just, and the Emperor, that just takes it for me. I love Snoke, but OT.
All right. Well, I'm not gonna even go out on a limb here. For me, this is pretty clean cut. This is sequel. Here's why. Tarkin, Rogue One. Listen, Director Krennic is one of the most evil frickin' people ever to have the Star Wars logo emblazoned on his material. That dude is just straight up maniacal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? I mean, we quoted him before and saying it's beautiful. When he's destroying people, he's destroying worlds, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I will take Vader in Rogue One versus Vader of original trilogy any day of the week. And we're throwing in, I haven't even got to Kylo and little albino kid Hux. And
he's twisted.
And so I think Hux unfortunately became a little bit of like a sidekick and the laugh at Hux's expense in The Last Jedi, but I think there's still some evil in him. Listen to me, Hope. So I'm gonna go sequel here. And I guess if I can take Tarkin and Vader and distinguish them as baddies in the sequels, it's not even a close contest. But that's just me, who happens to be right. All right.
This guy.
I know. All right. So we're coming back to something we touched on, and that is sequels or original, and that is dramatic tension. Dramatic tension. The author uses examples like, do we know if Cassian's going to shoot Jin's father on Edu? We don't. There's some tension there. Of course, even though we know that ultimately the Rebel Alliance gets the plans for the Death Star, there's some moments there where we don't know how that's going to happen. We have the dramatic tension of the original. My goodness, can it get more dramatically tense than the trench run of Star Wars? Can it get more intense than out on a ledge on Bespin with Darth Vader with his lightsaber in Luke Skywalker's grill? To me, this is one of the more tough ones to kind of navigate. Jeremy, I'm going to begin with you this time.
Yeah.
Originals or sequels for dramatic tension?
It's hard. I'm going to go with the originals. I think specifically episode 4, 5, and 6. I think Luke versus Vader, just like you said, the reveal, dramatic tension. What does Luke do? He's just sitting there. Do I kill myself or do I join my evil father? But the carbon freezing chamber just before that, where Han is going to be frozen, and you're just like, wait, is he going to tell Leia that he loves her? Are they going to tell each other that they care about each other? Is he going to die? I think that was an incredibly tense, dramatic moment. The climax of Return of the Jedi. I think it's the high mark of the pinnacle of the Star Wars stories.
Wow.
But also, I think even moments like in A New Hope, where, yes, you have the trench run, but also when Obi-Wan is separated from the gang and Luke sees Obi-Wan and Obi-Wan sees Luke, and there's this realization in that moment that how is Obi-Wan going to get back to Luke? And you fear that it's not going to go the way you hope it would. So I would just go with the originals. That's tough, though. I agree with the author of the article. Stevens is right. I mean, the sequels have some really good stuff in it, but I'm going to go with the originals.
All right. All right. Bex?
This is very difficult to decide because I want to say the originals for every reason that Jeremy just brought up, but I'm going to go with the sequel.
Whoa.
I can't believe I said that.
Tell me why.
Because the sequels pulled my heart out and handed it back to me.
Wow.
Multiple times. I mean, obviously Han Solo and Ben on the bridge.
Sure.
And the tension there and the will he, won't he, please God, let me have not seen that just happen. Chewbacca's reaction to that, one of the most dramatically tension-filled scenes, I think. And even in The Last Jedi, where Kylo and Rey, they are force booking or whatever we're calling it.
Yeah.
And the tension where they go to touch hands and then Luke walks in, that tension that is there, and it just, they're good at really pulling it out. So I'm going to have to go sequels.
All right. Eve, weigh in here. Break the tie.
It might be a draw for me.
Oh.
I know. Because I just keep going back and forth between all of the tense moments that have been listed from the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, but just adding in my own favorite points like Luke on Dagobah in the cave and not really understanding what I was looking at. But then at the same time, Rey in the underwater cave and not really understanding what I'm looking at. So I both of them kind more than once, probably more than 2 or 3 times per movie, have me on the edge of my seat. Like, what is going to happen? My heart is in my throat. Do I know that Han Solo is going to die, but do I? And same thing with Luke at the end of The Force Awakens. Them 72 seconds, I still remember the timing too, because it's just, I didn't breathe for over a minute because I thought he's going to say something. He's going to say something, and then nothing. So all of them have them wow tense moments for me. So draw. I cannot pick.
Wow, that's pathetic. Listen,
mean.
I love the sequels, and and again, we haven't even really touched on the prequels. I think there is lots of tension with Revenge of the Sith when Anakin and Vader and Obi-Wan are fighting. I think that there's tension when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are fighting Darth Maul. I think that, Jeremy, had you not been spoiled by the title track on the soundtrack, you might have appreciated that scene more.
Yeah.
Here's where I go, though, and this is why I'm going with originals. And that is, I can still get the same nervous feeling watching the trench run from the original 41 years later that I got when I was 5 years old. And while I still enjoy some of the tense scenes from the sequels, it doesn't come close to that. And so maybe I'm letting one skew how I'm weighting this, but I don't care because I busted 31 kids for cheating today, so I'm allowed to do that. So I'm going to go original. And I just, again, tense moments. And again, a lot of it probably had a lot to do with how old I was. But my goodness, the lightsaber battle on Bespin. And Jeremy, you brought up the carbon freezing. Like, what's going to happen to Han Solo? And the end of Empire when they're just hanging out in the medical bay and like, what? Like, that is tension when things like that. I don't know that we've had an ending to a Star Wars film like that. Rogue One may come close, but we know what happens 5 minutes after that, right?
True.
So I got to go original here. I got to go original. So, Eve, do you want to change at all, or do you want to?
No.
Oh my gosh! All right.
No.
All right, split. All right, I'm making notes here. All right. Woo. All right, here we go. Last one, I believe. Or maybe a couple more. I don't know. I've lost count. Here we go. Next one. This kind of goes into what we talked about acting-wise, and that is dialogue. Better dialogue, better writing in the sequels or the originals. Of course, sand gets everywhere. Eve, let's begin with you.
The sequels.
Sequels?
Yeah. I mean, the only point where I go, am I right, is because May the Force Be With You came from the original trilogies, and that's just magic.
Yeah.
But the sequels.
Yeah. It's interesting because one of the things the author says in here is, hey, if we heard the line, the circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner, but now I am the master. He goes, if we heard that in today's sequel world, we would think that that's the most dumb thing that the writers could ever write. In fact, he goes on to say that that would be the equivalent of saying, I don't like sand. I think that's stretching things a little bit too far, and he's perhaps had a little bit too much blue milk at the point of blogging this article when he says this. But all right, so Eve, you were saying sequels. All right. Bex.
I'm going to disagree, and I'm going to say original trilogy.
Wow, okay.
Because the original trilogy gave us May the Force Be With You, and it also gave us I Love You, I Know. And
so 2 lines.
But all I can think of from the new from The Last Jedi is Phasma looking at Finn and saying, "You've always been scum," and he goes, "Rebel scum."
Yeah.
Like, wah wah.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the humor and joke thing in a second. But okay. All right. It's hard to argue against May the Force Be With You, but I think there might be that's a narrow sample size.
It is.
It's a narrow sample size.
But no. I'm going to go with original.
Let me ask you this, Bex.
Ask away.
Okay, good. Because I want a definitive answer. No
all right.
ties on this. Sequels or originals?
Mm-hmm.
You could even throw the prequels in here if you wanted to.
No.
Okay, so sequels or originals then?
Mm-hmm.
Chewbacca's dialogue.
Oh. I'm going to have to go originals.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, and what is it about the original Wookiee dialogue? What is it?
Peter Mayhew.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. He got the
he just
growl.
He did. He just embodied Chewbacca so much more.
Yeah. Spoke like a real Wookiee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Jeremy, your thoughts on this when it comes to the dialogue?
Yeah, I think it's the sequels. I think the original trilogy is more quotable, but it was because I watched it a million times as like a 6, 7, 8-year-old.
Right.
And it's quotable. But does that mean the dialogue is better top to bottom? And I think when you look at the writing and how the characters are talking, I think you got to go with all these new films that Disney's put out.
All right. Yeah, I can't argue that. I'm going to go ahead and go with sequels just because I can. Just because I can.
You can. You busted 31.
You can do whatever you
31. Want. I know. Baskin Robbins over here. Hey, this next one is super easy. In fact, I don't think there's going to be any disagreement in this. There may be some people that disagree with it out there in the regions of the Twitterverse and beyond. But sequels versus originals, better representation goes to sequels according to the author. Bex, your thoughts?
I'm going to have to agree with the author.
All right. Eve.
Absolutely agree.
Jeremy?
Equals.
Okay, I'm going to go against... No, I'm not going to go against the grain. That'd be silly. Yeah, obviously. And obviously he's talking about like human representation, right?
Right.
Yeah. We'll get next week we'll get to alien representation. All right, here he goes. And he's making a distinction here. He says, in his opinion, the sequels have better jokes. Not necessarily humor, but better jokes. I guess one-liners, things like that. He's classifying them as he says, now think back to your first viewing of the original trilogy films or anyone else's first viewing. There are definitely funny lines in the original trilogy, but they're not as he puts it, laugh out loud moments. And they're certainly not as frequent. To be clear, being funnier does not necessarily mean the new films are better. In fact, some have criticized the comedic direction in the new films have taken. It just depends on your preference of what Star Wars should be. So he's more talking about these laugh out loud moments versus generalized humor or situations. Eve, jokes, sequels or originals?
Jokes, sequels.
All right. Give me your favorite sequel joke.
I've been thinking on this since you've been talking. And the first one that popped in my brain, and it wasn't really necessarily a joke, it was just a moment when Finn is trying to drag Rey by holding her hand. And she just keeps shaking him off like, what are you doing? You know? And I know that's the humor of the movie and not the joke, but I cannot think of a joke to save my life.
Oh, goodness. Well, we don't want you to die on the air.
Yeah.
Bex, your thoughts, originals or sequels?
Sequels.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Give me your favorite.
It wasn't a line so much as an action where at the beginning of The Last Jedi, Luke tosses the lightsaber over his shoulder.
Oh, see, I hated that moment.
I hated it the first time I saw it. The second time I watched it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's kind of funny.
Oh, gosh, I'm going to change my decision just based on that alone. Oh, had he dropped it, I would have been okay. But flinging over the shoulder, it's so Three Stooges. All right, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I'm really having a hard time with how he's differentiating jokes and humor. You know what I mean? Like,
I think jokes are more like one-liners versus just comedic moments.
Yeah, I guess sequels, Poe and Hux, that whole sequence at the beginning of The Last Jedi, I thought that was funny. There's a lot of K2SO moments, things that he says, like zingers that I really enjoy. So I guess I'm going to go sequels or the new Disney films as better jokes. So that's where I'm landing.
All right. I guess I will too. I don't know. I sure. I know that I literally I LOL'd in the theater when Han says to Chewie, "Oh, you're cold, really?" That was an LOL moment, or that's not how the Force works. I think it was unfortunate that those two jokes were so closely together because I think it would have played better comedically if they were spread out a little bit.
Yeah.
Finn talking to Phasma. I'm in charge now.
Yeah.
See, I didn't like that though. I didn't like that at all. I didn't like that, and I didn't like. Honestly, I didn't like the whole Poe and Hux thing in The Last Jedi.
Well, I see. All right, I'm with you on that. But if I take it and sort of tweezer it out, like take a pair of tweezers and pull it out as a joke, that's funny. It just doesn't necessarily fit Star Wars for me.
Yeah.
Like, so I agree with the Poe Huck stuff. It doesn't make sense. And I think the next time we talk about humor and the next episode, I think it'll be a little more clear, you know, and we'll talk a lot about the Han Solo scene in A New Hope, where he's communicating with the Imperials after they've gone into cell block 1138. So, you know, it's the jokes. Great. They don't always fit, but standalone moments, they're funny.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah. I'll go with that. Yeah, we'll talk about humor because I think that humor is a lot easier to probably define and wrap our minds around, come up with some moments. So I won't say split because I detest the split. I just test the tie. So I'll go closing my eyes and looks like it's going to be sequels for me. My definitive answer. Sequels.
There you go.
Oh, goodness. Hey, Tauntauns, that was a fun ride. Stick around. We'll be right back to wrap things up.
We're not done yet. Wrap it up.
All right, Tauntauns, it is time for a few announcements as always. Eve, what do you got for us this week?
Well, as y'all know by now, you can catch us usually Monday nights, every Monday night, live on the Twitter, starting at 7:15 Pacific time, which is 10:15 Eastern time. And Neil, you have your own special time at 3:15 in the morning. You're a rock star.
Wow.
But just in case you missed that, you can find it on YouTube by searching for Unmistakably Star Wars, or it will be up on our homepage on the website at unmistakably.starwars.com in a few days. So last week was the first time that we did something a little bit different. We are doing a monthly patron giveaway in which we give an audiobook free to one of our patrons. And this month's book was Last Shot, and Connie, she won the big prize. And we would love to give, you know, a book to you guys. So be a winner. Become a patron.
There you go.
And you can find that info on our website by going to unmistakably.starwars.com/Patreon for more details.
Nice. And I think the book that we have this month is another Jason Fry installment that talks about Rose, I believe. So Rose Tico fans, your chance to win the Jason Fry audiobook. Hey, we also mentioned last week that some pretty cool things have happened, and one of them, of course, is that our partnership with Outer Rim Originals, outerrimoriginals.com, has been able to secure some licensed Disney, Lucasfilm, Topps trading cards artists who are producing exclusive work for USW and Outer Rim Originals, and that is available at outerrimoriginals.com. There is a limited supply of signed and numbered Ziclay prints. Bex, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ziclay or not, because it's a French word and it starts with a G, not a Z. Yes. It threw me at first, but Ziclay, it is hand-signed, hand-numbered, limited run. If you want to purchase one of those, then I suggest you head on over to Outer Rim Originals ASAP while there's still a few around there. You can also order some different sizes. You can order ones that are not signed or numbered, and as well as some greeting cards, postcards, stickers, things like that. So they're featuring 2 artists this month, and both are featuring artwork for the upcoming Han Solo film that, Bex, you were looking forward to watching in just a couple of short weeks. As always, we cannot do this without our patrons. As Eve mentioned earlier, we thank you for your kindness, your generosity, your encouragement, and of course, financial contributions and sacrifices to make this little pod continue to chug along. Our patrons who are part of the USW Extended Fam include Brandon Boylan, Jim Capron, Dave Hackerson, Michelle Grandine, Jeff Keltz, Neil Lowry. By the way, I have a new nickname for Neil, and it even rhymes here. Neil, you are the epitome of positivity. There it is. Ooh. It's almost like a WWE label. It's amazing. It's amazing. So Neil Lowry, the epitome of positivity. Also, William Pollock, Regina Sanders, Connie Shee, who is last month's winner, Aaron Sinner, Christmas Malinsky, Franklin Taylor, Brad Tracy, Michael Ward, Amy Wishman, And it's that time every week that our patrons and listeners across the globe look forward to. When I say those magic words, I fucking love C-3PO.
Whoa!
I cannot tell you how much I love that Golden Protocol droid right here. And there's rumor, turn this off if you don't want Solo spoilers, but there's rumors, according to Mark Hamill, that he's going to be in the Solo film. I'm not going to lie. That kind of pisses me off. But anyway, it is what it is, folks. It is what it is. Patrons, thank you. Thank you, everyone who's been part of the journey tonight. And since USW has been around, if you haven't already, spread the good gospel of USW. Let a friend know. Go knock on your neighbor's doors. Hand them USW track and let them know what they're missing and what they need to be a part of. That's all for this week, my little tauntauns. The circle is now complete. We'll see you next time in the digital docking bay. And until then, may the Force be with you.
Unmistakably Star Wars is a member of the Star Wars Escape Pods Network. Explore more great content and get to know our sister shows at weareescapepods.com and on Twitter at weareescapepods. The Star Wars Escape Pods Network, promoting positivity in fandom.
This party's over.
Move along. Move along.
And we are clear. Good job, everyone. That was fun. Good job. Good times. Oh, man. Hey, Eve, is Neil still with us?
Let me check.
Neil?
Yes, he is.
Neil, you are amazing. I don't know what caused the person to get out. I would barely get out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning if my kids needed me in the middle of the night. And here you are, 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, what, 5 o'clock in the morning your time? My goodness,
Neil, you're amazing.
You are amazing.
Yeah, you are.
Total champ.
Wow.
Total champ.
Wow. Well, listen.
Yes.
Neil, we will see you, no doubt, in just a few hours on Twitter again, because every morning when I wake up, there's always a Neil Lowry epitome of positivity tweet awaiting for me, and that is a great way to start the day. All the rest of you that were hanging out with us tonight on the YouTube and on Twitter, thank you too. We appreciate you spending some of your evening, some of your mornings with us and the team. We will see you next time. Toodles, social media.
You're welcome, Neil. I think he lost connection and then came back.
Oh, man.
Devin dancing towards